Well, guess what? Bo kept his word. He kept his promise. Bo Thompson is at the South Park newsroom, sitting alongside me, about 15 feet from me, sitting on my rooftop. As you can see, the skyline, I can go this way behind me. Bo is, I don't know, 30 feet from me. And
I'm waving to you right now.
That's right. That's right. We're up here drinking our beer, and I'm the only one with a cigar, as is the custom for my show here, or part here on Talktoberfest 2024. And Bo has his favorite beer in the world, courtesy, by the way, of yours truly.
Exactly right. Did I give you this beer like for Christmas, and then you re-gifted it now?
No, you gave me the special beer that you can't buy in Charlotte.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. And I have to say, I mean, this, Cold Mountain comes from Highland Brewing, which is in Asheville. And I was just checking their website today, and for understandable reasons, they're closed temporarily. And, I don't know what to expect there. There may be no Cold Mountain this season, and that's the least of their worries up there. But I don't know. So this may be it for this year, unfortunately, because of the obvious hurricane issues. But look, man, it's great to be here on behalf of Craft Body Scan. This is WBT's Talktoberfest. This is actually my second voyage here, and we've only been doing them for a week. So this is my second time around. I did last Monday with Beth Troutman, and then this is your debut. And then let's see, you're going to be doing it again.
No, I'm one and done, big boy.
You're one and done?
Yeah.
Oh, that means you might have to crash somebody else's.
This is my one and only appearance, so all you people better get it while you can.
Well, we appreciate everybody joining us, and of course, you know how this works. We have both of us. We wanted to try and do this in the same spot, but then somewhat separated so we could both see the screen with the chat room and the questions, and so we've managed to make this work. We were a little bit worried about Wi-Fi, but I can see you can see me, they can hear us. I see people populating the room here. So you know how this works, Brett. It's like, ask us anything.
Well, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to real quick. So my phone's on a tripod, and then you look behind me, Bo, wave to the crowd.
See?
There you go.
Wow,
so
this is like, I'm there and I'm here and I'm there. And this is the famous rooftop studio, the South Park Bureau, right? This is you hear about this all the time. I've never been here until tonight, so I just I actually checked out his humble abode and saw Maggie, who's more famous than both of us combined, and she's doing well. And I really feel good because my wife sent me over here with some dog treats that my dog Phyllis goes crazy for. And I walked in and I said, "Hey, I brought Maggie some dog treats," and Brett was like, "She won't eat them. She doesn't eat anything right now, barely anything." And I walked over and put it in front of her, and she devoured that thing. So I'm feeling pretty good right now.
And the first words out of my mouth were, "You've got to tell me what it is," because like the last time she ate a full meal was from Saturday night when I went to Jamie and I went to Del Frisco's, and we had a couple of leftovers, like a tomahawk filet mignon, a tomahawk ribeye, and gave her a little bit of leftovers. That was the first time she'd eaten in 3 days. And so even went to Costco the other day and bought like 80 pounds, or excuse me, $80 worth of New York strip steaks stuff to see if she would eat that, because she ate the steak, and she won't eat it. I cooked it exactly like I would want to cook, medium rare, everything else. Touch it. Bo walks in, little gift bag, sandwich bag, treats. She hasn't eaten in a day and a half. Next thing you know, she's scarfing down the streets from Bo.
We got Bobby, who's checking in from Gastonia. We have Mark. Yes, it is a beautiful spot. It actually, I kind of had a picture in my head of what this was going to look like, because I've heard about it for so many years, and this is way better than I thought. This is awesome. We got Steve checking in, and if you're listening or watching right now, all you got to do is drop in. There's a chat room here, and we can talk about whatever you like. Let's see. I'm getting word that there's a little bit of an echo going on, but only when Brett talks.
Oh, okay. Well, let me turn mine down. I can turn my volume down. It's a big deal. I can hear Bo. There you go. So is that even better? How's that?
I think that'll be better.
Bernie, give us a little thumbs up or tell Bo yay or nay if that's good. I turned my volume all the way down.
Yes, better. Bernie Bowles is, as with every one of these Talktoberfest events, Bernie's our engineer, of course, from Good Morning BT. the guy that really everything goes through and is so instrumental to everything we do. And he's done every one of these, or is going to do every one of these. So keep that in mind. He engineers all these, and he gets up in the morning and puts up with us. So Bernie is the man. But you knew that if you listen to the show. We got Monica checking in, and yes, the sunset is amazing.
Well, actually, Monica, hang on, Bo. Don't speak so we don't get any feedback. I want to show you something, Monica. This is the sunset from the rooftop. That's pretty strong. And we get this every night. And it's a pretty great rooftop. By the way, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's the skyline.
This is like Monday Night Football with all the different camera angles. Or like ESPN2 does the Manning cast. So you get the main feed, and then like Brett shows you different angles. So we're actually really breaking ground with Talktoberfest right here. Let's see here who we've got up. There's Will Timms, WBT super fan. Love seeing you on here, Will. Will always drops by, usually for these. Steve Adams says, my dad was a WBT listener during the 60s and 70s. I restarted listening when I moved back to the area in 2014. How did you guys get hooked up with WBT?
Well, it's funny. Bo's the reason I'm at WBT now. I mean, they're the reason why I'm there. And so he reached out to me one day. I remember exactly where I was at. I was actually taking Maggie out to do her daily business or her morning business. Bo called me in the middle of that and said, hey, have you ever thought about covering news? Because many of you know, maybe I was a sports reporter for 25 years, foxsports.com, ESPN, Channel Observer, whatever. And Bo said, have you ever thought about covering news? And I said, it never once entered my brain. And true, because I didn't know anything about politics or anything like that. I covered I kept up with the presidential election, obviously, and the governor, and that was about it. I had heard the name Vi Lyles, but I couldn't have said the name Vi Lyles if you'd asked me who the Charlotte mayor was. And that was in late July, last week of July in 2018. And September 10th, I'm starting my first day at WBT. And the only reason I'm there is because of Bo Thompson.
So it's my fault. You can blame me. No, I'm thrilled that it's worked out the way it has with Brett. I mean, we actually met. True story. We met when I was working in TV. This is weird. I'm wearing a hat, and I'm not used to wearing a hat on the camera here, so I keep looking at it, and it's looks like this.
I got the old Charlotte Hounds lacrosse hat going on.
I do not. I have a Carolina Panthers hat, and I don't even know the Charlotte Hounds.
Remember, they were the professional lacrosse team in town?
Did you say that? Lacrosse?
Yeah, lacrosse team. They were the professional lacrosse team in town, and they gave me some free swag when I was doing my show at WFNZ and was working at Fox Sports, so they gave me a free swag. I don't even think they're in existence anymore, but I always liked it, so I kept it.
Well, I was going to say that the funny thing about when you and I actually met, you were doing a bunch of work over at FNZ at the time, before FNZ was owned by and was in the same building as our stations now. This is back when FNZ was cross town, but you were doing a bunch of fill-in work for Mark Packer over there. And then you had your own show. But this would have been 2009, 2010.
I can tell you exactly. The first time I did a radio show with you was Cam Newton's national championship game when he was at Auburn versus Oregon. And Bo was the producer of The Edge with Morgan Fogarty. And because the national championship game went so long, we didn't go on air, Bo, till 12:30 in the morning.
That's right. It used to happen a lot whenever, because they had obviously Fox carries, and they were in a Fox affiliate back then. Now they're not, but back then I was working as a producer over there between radio jobs, and they would have NFL football sometimes, but when the baseball playoffs, like this time of year, when you had baseball playoffs almost every night, those things would go late, and we would always do a newscast because you'd get some of the highest ratings on nights when you're following a big event like that. So like Brett says, we would start what was supposed to be a 10 o'clock newscast or 10:30 show, sometimes well after midnight. But yeah, so I was working there then, and then Brother Fred, remember him, who now does Chicago radio, does really well at it too. But Brother Fred was doing a radio morning show, and then he and Morgan did The Edge That's the show I produced at night. And so there was a big birthday bash for Fred at a nightclub over in the Music Factory district called Butter.
Yeah, that's
right?
it. Butter. That's what it was. Just getting ready to say it's called Butter. Yep.
So we got there, and now look, I'm 50 now. Back then I was what? So I guess I was in my mid 30s, mid 30s. And so even then I realized that at Butter, I was one of the older people there. And then Brett was there. And I think we kind of gravitated toward each other because like, oh, someone that looks and sounds like me. So we started talking that night, and we had all these common people that we knew. And we had a great time, and we started talking radio because what else are we going to talk about? And I said, hey.
Yeah, what else are we going to talk about as with a single guy at a nightclub?
Well, and I was the married guy, and I was sitting there, and I remember you and I were sitting there, and all these 20-somethings were dancing, and I'm thinking, what the heck am I doing here? And then Fred, I think, saw us and had the restaurant people bring us a big tub of Coronas, and he put it down in front of us, and you and I just sat there and had beers and talked for a long time. And I don't know, at that point in time, it's kind of similar to the first time that I talked to Beth Troutman. We sat down and we talked, or actually it was on the phone, and realized we had all these common sort of experiences and new people and such. And I remember thinking, wow, that was a really easy conversation. The same way with when I first met Beth, but even further back when I met Jensen, I remember thinking, I like this guy. We have a lot in common to talk about. Man, it'd be fun to work together someday. Not thinking then that, well, first of all, I had to get back into radio, but even then, FNZ and BT back then were they weren't direct competitors, but we were both on the AM dial, and one of the few stations that were. And so I thought,
but when I was at WFNZ, my bonuses were tied on beating Keith Larson in head-to-head. That's all they cared about, was beating WBT. That's all WFNZ cared about at the time. Ratings were, yes, whether you're 1, 2, or 3 in the market, but also, did you beat WBT in your time slot? And that's a true story.
And so that's my point about, you guys were sports, we were news talk and some sports. But I remember FNZ used to run these promos that would say, we rule the AM dial. I remember every time I heard that, I'd be like, you don't have as much power as we do. You're not a 50,000 watt torch. But little did I know someday that Brett and I would work together for BT, and then FNZ would be under the same roof, which still to this day is a little, when I think about it, given the fact that FNZ used to be Big Ways WAYS back in the day, and those were in the 60s and 70s, some crazy AM battles between WBT and WAYS. Jay Thomas versus Bob Lacey and Harold Johnson and Larry Sprinkle. So anyway, long story short, we met that night because we sort of hit it off. And I remember thinking, just like my first meeting with Beth, man, we have a lot in common. Be fun to work together someday. And now fast forward to 2024, and we all work for the same station. And sometimes, like Tuesdays, we're all on the air together. So it's really cool how things work out, that when you think about how they all got to where they are, pretty remarkable, actually. Let's see, hello to Deva, I think it's Deva, but Deva, DEVA, I think she's jumped on here with us before. She is asking how Maggie's doing, Brett.
Well, I can tell you, and I've never pulled punches, and I want to say it was late last week on my show, maybe Thursday night or whatever it was. I said that your prayers would be good at this point. She's 15 years, 4 months, and I want to say 14 days, something like that, or 13 days, because I know what day she was born. But kidney disease for dogs impacts their smell and their taste buds. And something that she would love for 13, 14 years no longer smells good or tastes good to her because it alters the smell and taste of dogs. So it's been a real battle of trying to get things and find things over the last 3 weeks that she'll eat. And she'll go 3 days, 4 days, not eat a thing. And that's what I was asking for, the prayers. And shortly thereafter, like maybe the very next day or a day and a half later, she ate again, which was great. And she regained a lot of her strength. And then she'd go 2 or 3 days and not eat. And then she ate the Del Frisco steaks the other night. And then she really hadn't eaten until Bo showed up with a sandwich bag full of treats that she scarfed down in 2 seconds. And so Bo's going to go home, take a photo of the treat box that he got and send it to me so I can go out and buy more things and see if she'll eat it, because apparently she likes those treats, because the treats that she ate for 14 and a half years, she no longer likes. But to answer your question, it's honestly, it's day to day at this point, or week to. Let me rephrase that. It's week to week at this point. She looks good. She's just not eating.
Just saw her when I came in. I took her the treats, like Brett said, but I think it's my wife knew I was coming over to do this, and really all she cared about. I mean, she said to tell you hello, and that's cool. You're doing a radio thing, but she said, take these treats to Maggie. And so I did. I walked in and I said, it's like a housewarming gift. Yeah, I bring things for Maggie. And I said, does she like treats? And Brett said, she hasn't eaten anything much at all like that in a while. You can try. And so I went over and I put it down in front of her. And for a second, she kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And then I walked away for a minute, and then I heard this crunching going on. And she said, Brett, she's going to town on this thing. And so, like you said, I'm going to send him the package, because my dog Phyllis goes nuts for these things. Now, my dog Phyllis is about as big as Maggie's, hind leg. She's a little miniature schnauzer, but she goes crazy for these things. We joke at my house because the bag says they're treats that are dipped in joy, and they're dipped in peanut butter. I don't know if it's peanut butter something. It's like a peanut butter coating. But our dog flips out. I mean, if I have to get our dog to do something, or if she's in our backyard and I'm trying to get her to come in and nothing else works, I take the bag out in the back and like crinkle it, and she will come running at 50 miles an hour. So if maybe we're onto something tonight. I hope so.
Well, I mean, her my mic's there. You go. Yeah, maybe just leave it unmuted. But at this point, look, if she eats that, I will give that to her for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If she wants, because at this point, as somebody said, what are you saving it for? Exactly. It's not like I'm worried about her gaining weight or anything. So if all she wants to do is eat dog treats all day, then she's more than welcome to eat dog treats all day.
So we got Drew has jumped aboard. Hey, Drew. Drew was here when I last did this with Beth. Good evening, gentlemen. Greetings from Caldwell County. Brett, thanks for your reports from the mountains. We got Tammy says, hey, Brett and Bo, happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Cold Mountain in the house.
That's right.
Let's see. Joseph. Hey, Joseph. He just checked in. Enjoy both of your shows streaming in Hickory. What cigar are you enjoying tonight, Brett? He wants to know.
I am enjoying a My Father cigar. It's a really good cigar brand, really well-known cigar brand. And here's the cigar wrapper that I took off. There it is. Of course, I drop it. It's a My Father cigar. There we go. But yeah, it's a really good cigar brand, and it's just a little short one. Nothing. Very first time I got into smoking cigars, well over a decade ago, person that was introduced me to cigars said, you always ask someone, how long do you want to spend smoking a cigar? 30 minutes, an hour, hour and a half, or more than 2. So I got an hour-long cigar. So that's what I got. So it's good. It's really good. By the way, speaking of the mountains, and thanks for the kind words about the report from the mountains, if you stick around till the end, I'm going to give you guys some special news that Bo doesn't even know about concerning the mountains, and I'll announce that at the very end of our broadcast.
All right, so we'll actually break some news. I actually learned something about our Friday show that you don't know about, but you wouldn't necessarily know this, but it's at least something that I can hold on to at the end. I found out late this afternoon, something I've been trying to work out for our Friday show that's going to be on location from the Speedway. And so I just got that news, so we'll divulge that right at the end. We've got Cassidy Hooper, the amazing one, in the house. Hi, Cassidy. Let's see. Let me try to get some of these questions here. I saw one earlier that is more for you than me, but I want to go back to it. Oh, here it is. Monica says, Bo and Brett, have you ever had an investigative case that you broke or you still think of? Well, I mean, you could talk about just the ones last week for you. I'm not a reporter per se, but let me think about that one for a second. But I know you've got something to say.
So something that I broke that I still think of, or yeah, I mean, there are a couple that I've done over the years. You know, I broke a really, really big story when I was, gosh, it was been 1999 and 2000 when I was sports reporter at the Hickory Daily Record. There was a big one there that sort of put me on the map a little bit, and which led me to my next job. It involved Lenore Ryan and the athletic department and the women's basketball team. And then, but just specifically broke at WBT. You know, I tell this story a lot, and I don't know if it's any one specific one, but what happened yesterday in the mountains, and Bo and I talked about it. We talked about it this morning on Bo's show, about what happened to me yesterday in the mountains. And what happened to me yesterday was, and it involves Bo and Beth as well. So I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm halfway between Black Mountain and Bat Cave on Route 9. And I, had been walking everywhere and hiking everywhere, trying to get to all these places and interviewing all these people because I'm really interested in were they even considering voting? Were they interested in voting? Was it the furthest thing from their mind? Could they not wait to vote and all that? Because early voting starts next week, by the way. So I stop at the last place before I'm getting ready to stop, go on my way home. And I just start talking to people. And so I walk up to them. And they don't know me from Adam, obviously. And they're sitting in the front yard. And I say, hi, my name is, I'm with WBT Radio out of Charlotte. And my name is Brett Jensen. And I was just wondering if I could ask you a few questions because I see you guys got a sign out in your front yard telling everyone to make sure they vote. And a guy with a long beard, a mountain beard, we'll just call it a mountain beard. And he was probably in his early 40s, late 30s. You can't really tell when they have a beard. And he said, breaking Brett Jensen? And I said, do I have anything to be worried about? Because, you never know sometimes. And
you should have said, who wants to know? Or why do you want to know?
And he said, he goes, I listen to Bo and Beth every single day. My car station lives on 99.3 FM. And then I was a little bit amazed because we're 2 hours from Charlotte in the mountains, in Black Mountain, in the middle of nowhere. And I said, you can get that up here? No, I know you can get the AM station from Canada to Cuba. I get that. But I said, you can get 99.3 up here? He goes, clear as a bell. No problem at all. He goes, and I listen to Bo and Beth every single day, and I listen to your show driving home at night. And he said, we've turned away all these media people, but he goes, you're going to be the only one that I talk to because I feel like I already know you. And I went, well, that's pretty cool. That's actually really cool. And that whole Breaking Brett thing accidentally started on Brett Winable's show during COVID. To get around to your answer, anything I remember, I was breaking all the news a day in advance, 36 hours in advance of what Governor Cooper was going to do next, what new restrictions he was going to impose or release or whatever, because I had someone in the cabinet. And I was putting all that out there. And on my Twitter account, then Twitter, now X, I only use these words if I'm the one breaking the story. I put in capital letters, breaking. And I only do that if I'm the one breaking the story. Now, all the other media outlets, they'll do it 5 hours after the fact. They'll still put the word breaking. But so Brett Winable goes, he meant to say, let's go to Brett Jensen with some breaking news. But what came out was, let's go to Breaking Brett Jensen with some news. Our old GM, Matt Hanlon, heard it, loved it, and said, we need to start calling Brett Breaking Brett. And because of that, politicians come up to me and go, oh, Breaking Brett. And Bo has been the forefront of leading all that. Bo and Brett Winable really leading that, calling me that every time they introduce me. And now I've got a guy in the mountains in the middle of nowhere going, oh, breaking Brett Jensen. And that's all because of Bo and Brett Winnable.
Well, it's because of the work that you've done too. That's right. Some BT listeners right there. You hear what I said? I said breaking with Brett Jensen, and they said,
there you go.
Damn straight.
That's it. I mean, that's what happens when you're doing this outside. That's right.
Well, the question was, what's a story is there an investigation that you've broken or a story that you've broken? And obviously I'm not a reporter in the way that Brett is, although things break on my show, and I've been doing it for 12 years now. And I think, I'm not saying that I broke this story. It's more or less a story. I remember when it broke and I was doing my show. And I mean, it broke to the whole world, but I remember being on the air, and it was when Billy Graham died, about 5 or 6 years ago. And when I took the job in 2012, I remember that we were all sort of, shortly after I took that job, I remember someone interviewed Franklin Graham getting into a car at the airport. A reporter just happened to walk up to him and ask him, how's your dad doing? And he said something that I think was in passing, but it sort of raised everybody's, put everybody's radar up, thinking that Billy Graham was close to dying, because he said, my dad is ready. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, my father is ready to meet the Lord. And you didn't know if that meant that he was in really bad health and that was coming soon, or was he just saying that that's a fact that's always been the case? But I remember thinking shortly after I took over that I need to be ready when this happens. And so what ended up happening is, really for another 3 or 4 years, in the back of my mind always was, Billy Graham is getting up towards 100 years old, and you got to be ready for that story, because that'll be the biggest story that will probably break in Charlotte and on WBT, maybe for the time that you work there. I mean, I worked at BT behind the scenes when 9/11 happened, but so for the first half of my tenure so far, I was always in the back of my mind thinking, are you ready for the day that you get word that Billy Graham passed away? Because that's just a huge story and has so many WBT connections. And I basically spent a little time each month for the next 3 or 4 years doing research, gathering tape. I went out to the library and found some old footage of Billy Graham, and that's where I found that famous part of the 1996 crusade where he mentioned WBT that I play sometimes. But I mean, I had a book of audio, edit stuff, and materials for the day that I knew was coming, and it finally did. And so it's kind of a long, winding way to answer your question there, but I remember being on the air that day, and I remember having to pivot within 5 minutes completely away from what we had planned to do, and knowing that I'd be on the air all day, and I was. And Mark Garrison came through, and David Chadwick came through, and basically everybody came through, but I anchored the coverage through most of the day. And so I remember when the Billy Graham passing story broke, and I'll never forget that. And I'm hard pressed to think there's going to be a bigger story than that that's both national, global, and has this huge Charlotte connection with the Billy Graham Library and the fact that he's buried here and all of that, and the funeral was here. And then as an extension of that, about 2 weeks later, I anchored our coverage, our 7 hours long coverage, because we started at 5 a.m. and took it all the way through until the service happened there at the Billy Graham Library. But that was with David Chadwick and Mark Garrison, and Pat McCrory was doing a show with me at that time, so he was part of that. But that's easily the biggest story I've ever been a part of that happened while I was on the air. So, well,
and I will tell you this, and I should have mentioned this, and I don't know why I didn't mention this, but since at WBT, my third day on the job, I was covering Hurricane Florence and all that, and I was doing live stuff with Bo and all that. But the one that I remember probably the most, that I still play the sound of it to friends because I have it on my phone, is the night of the riots, and Bo was in the studio and I was out on the streets. And there's two things that I've said. One in an interview, which I still don't know why I said what I said in the middle of an interview while actually interviewing at WBT, not knowing these people from Adam. And I said something that I had no business saying, but I said it because Bo knows me. I have a tendency to do that. And the other thing that I still to this day sort of lament over, and I'm not happy that I did it, I got hit with tear gas and pepper spray, and my eyes started watering. I was coughing left and right, and Bo's like, "Be careful, go where you need to go, whatever." And I don't know. 90 seconds later, I was able to compose myself and barely speak. And the first words out of my mouth, and to this day, I don't know why I said this, then the most unprofessional thing ever: tear gas sucks.
But it was real. Like, that was a genuine response. And I know what you're saying because you're a professional, but that night of radio, I'll never forget that either, because it was basically me sitting in the studio and you out there. And we just kind of, for lack of a better word, we did play-by-play of a riot, which sounds really strange, but it was unprecedented what was going on in Charlotte. And there was sort of that underlying edge with both of us not quite knowing what was going on. But I remember that like it was yesterday. And you were experiencing something that is not supposed to feel good.
Well, and I'd never experienced it before. I got news for you. They don't have tear gas canisters that go off at basketball games. And so I wasn't used to something like this. And then next thing you know, I'm right in the middle of it with all the police marching and the pepper balls going off, and they're shooting pepper balls at people and pepper spray balls and the tear gas canisters and the big loud cannon sounds. And I was just like, what in the world is happening right now? And the first words the only thing I could think of is tear gas sucks. So yes, that's the one that I talk about the most, actually. Of all the things I've done, that's the story I talk about the most.
So we should remind you that this, of course, is Talktoberfest 2024. This is the 4th edition. So we have, let's see, after us, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more of these. And then it culminates on Halloween Eve with Talktoberfest News and Brews at Heist Brewery again in Barrel Arts. So we're all going to be out there that night in person. But this month, we're doing all these different Talktoberfest events. And so tonight is obviously Brett and myself. And then you've got next Monday, Vince Coakley, Pete Callender, and Nick Craig, who hosts the brand new Carolina Journal News Hour, which happens right before Good Morning BT from 5 to 6. Nick is hosting that show and doing a great job. And I think Nick's going to try to be at News and Brews in person. So hopefully, and that'll be the first chance that I've had a chance to meet him. And if that works out, that'll be great. Also, if he can make it happen, and if you were listening to my show today, you might have heard John Hancock. He's been away for a while, and he was supposed to go on a cruise and take some time off, and then in the middle of that, his mother passed away at the age of 98 last week. And so John has obviously had his vacation plans turned upside down. But John, if he can still swing it with everything, is going to be at Talktoberfest at the News and Brews event. And he was at the very first one we ever did about 5 or 6 years ago. We did it during his retirement tour. Yep. So let's see here. Next, so that's next Monday. Then next Wednesday, a week from tonight, is Jim Zoki, Sharon Thorsland, and Ed Billick. We still have the ever popular Ladies Night coming up on the 21st. That'll be Beth and Sharon Thorsland and Pam Warner and Anna Erickson. And the last one is the Prod Squad with Bernie and Sir Steve of Anthony, John Moore, and Isaac. Isaac here in the afternoon on Brett Winterble's show. But this is all made possible by Craft Body Scan, and we appreciate you being here tonight.
Well, and by the way, speaking of News and Brews, and he just named, Hancock and the new person with the Carolina Journal that may be joining us. Bo, we may have a +1 there.
Oh, really?
We'll see. We'll see.
I was wondering if you would have a +1 tonight.
There was discussions and debate, but
There needs to be more star power than just me.
Oh, let me tell you, she's got all the star power. It's not mine. It's not me. It's her. And so, but yeah, there's a.
No, I meant she needs more star power to come to this. If it's just you and me.
I thought you meant you and I need more star power.
No.
Yeah,
Well,
definitely do that.
That would be huge. We have no star power right now other than us. No, I'm kidding. We're actually on the roof. This is the famous roof spot that Brett always does his News and Brews. I'm sorry, his Talktoberfest. And we've talked about this. And then when we got the schedule this year that he and I were going to be doing a night, I said, well, this is a no-brainer. I've got to come over to the roof with you. And so here we are. And that's how that came about.
Yeah. And this is trying to, well, actually, let me get this way. See, this is the problem when you have a camera that's pointed backwards. So all the stuff's inverted and like the letterings are backwards because everything's inverted. But anyways, just trying to get a little bit of the skyline over there. There you go. Maybe that.
No, what you don't know is I'm just going to stay here, man. This is the deal. This is like.
Well, Bo, let me know if you want to turn on the fire pit.
I feel like I'm royalty up here, man. I mean, it really is. Like I knew, like I honestly had this picture in my head that you were sitting on the roof, like on the roof of someone's house. And what it really is you, you're in this complex, and then you have a level up here, which is, I mean, this is the top, and there's a pool up here, and there's a fire pit, and then you can see down Charlotte in the background, and this sunset, man. Did you order this up specially for this? So this is cool. I'm glad to finally be here. But Mike Schaefer and I see Monica on here. Look, if I'm assigned with Brett ever again, then it always has to be here. I'm making that stipulation.
All right, so Bo, I want you to look at 1:00 from where Bo's facing. I want him to look at 1:00, at your 1:00, and over there where you're pointing.
Right.
The day of the South Park fire, I was up here because you can see the cranes. That's where the fire was, and the South Park fire. And that's when I was giving you and Beth play-by-play of what was going on up here. And this was my vantage point because I had the best view in all of South Park because there's nothing obstructing my view between me and the fire and the cranes. So this is where I was at, giving you guys play-by-play.
Yeah, I'm looking out over the balcony right here, and I'm looking at South Park Mall where the Cheesecake Factory is, and the big dome over the top there in Belk. So you're right. I mean, this is exactly. I would be right now in the sight line of that fire. And by the way, we're both in the same place up here, but I wanted to be able to see the chat room here and be able to see my screen, and so we're literally 5 feet away from each other, but it probably looks like we're in different parts of the building. Let's see here. What else we got going on? Yes, Drew says the stately Jensen manor. Let me tell you, it is a manor. Aaron says, Brett, well, he just said, your girlfriend going to try to be at News and Brews?
We'll see. Yes. I mean, she tried to be at the last one, but she had to do a recruiting thing with her daughter, who's a big-time swimmer. And so she couldn't be there for the last one. But as of today, and things can happen and things change and schedules change and everything else. But as of today, she's planning on being there. That's the word. And so when she's announced, I expect a standing ovation.
Well, at the last one, she actually made a cameo on your phone. So she was there in voice, which I guess is kind of fitting since this is a radio celebration. Again, hello to Terry and Kim and Steve, and I mentioned Monica and Drew and Tammy. People, let's see, Mike, he says, no, oh no, that was the tear gas conversation. I'm just trying to catch up on some of these because we get long-winded sometimes, but hey, it's talk radio. That's what we do.
By the way, Bo, how's your beer?
How's my beer?
Yeah.
My Cold Mountain, Highland Brewing, my favorite brewery in all of America, which is in Asheville. So I checked their website today. This is the special beer that I talk about a lot. That's a seasonal beer that they release around November, and you can get it. Brett and I know because we follow a Twitter page that tells you where they're delivering it in Charlotte. But there are a couple of other people in town that are fanatical about this. You and me and Joe Person from The Athletic, and who else? A few other people.
Yeah, a few other people. Well, the funny thing is, true story. I'm going to take you guys behind the curtain. Texted Bo about 5:00, and I said, "Hey, what do you want to drink? I've got water for you, obviously, but do you want like a really, really, really high-end bourbon, or do you want Cold Mountain beer? Because I have a little bit left over, and I just put a 6-pack in the case a few days ago. And he goes, I want the Cold Mountain beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Screw the high-end bourbon. I want the Cold Mountain beer.
Well, and sadly, I mentioned this at the top, but sadly, it may be the only Cold Mountain that we have this season because Highland is in Asheville, and it's up at the top of a hill. I go there every November because they have what they call it, the introduction weekend, when you can actually go up there and buy the beer directly from them. They have this little festival, and they have a bar that they open. It's not open every night, but it's open from time to time. But I discovered this about 3 or 4 years ago, and I always go up, and that's where I buy my couple of cases for the winter. But I checked their website today, and understandably, they're temporarily closed. I have no idea whether or not they will open this fall, but it just stands to reason with what's going on up there. They may not make Cold Mountain this fall. I hope they do, and if they do, I'll be one of the first to support that local business. But this may be it. And who would have thought that a hurricane in late September would prevent them from doing that? And look, as we've been saying on the air, I mean, we've been talking about voting. We've been talking, but they're just trying to figure out how to go day to day right now. And some people are so far away from thinking about beer or business or voting, but some people are. And you proved that yesterday. You went to Bat Cave and started walking around, and it shows you how high stakes this election is, that even with a catastrophic event like that, people are still thinking about voting and making sure that they have that ability. And I think based on what you've been hearing the last couple of days with the Board of Elections and the things they're doing to ensure that voting locations are open, can be moved if need be. Absentee ballots are going to be accepted up until almost election day itself. So, it's a very unusual, unpredictable time that we live in. But like I said, who would have thought?
Yeah, it's eerily similar. I was doing my research on the 1916 floods up in the mountains, and everyone in the mountains, they're now comparing it to the floods of 1916. So I did my research. I was like, all right, well, what happened in 1916? Now, obviously, Asheville and Boone and all those places were immensely less populated, obviously, and the roadways weren't anywhere like what they are today and anything like that. But here's where everything was similar, and why they keep saying the 1916 floods. You had a hurricane come up through the Florida Panhandle, just like this one did with Helene, come up and go right over the mountains, right? Just like it did. 3 days later, you had another hurricane coming in from Wilmington from the east and went right over the mountains. So they had back-to-back hurricanes in the mountains in a span of 3 days with all that rain and all that mudslides and all the flooding and everything else. And it's essentially what happened here. You had a low front settle over North Carolina. Remember, we got all the rain 2 days before Helene ever came here. All the rain we got had nothing to do with Helene before it had got here. And so it settled with all that rain. And then next thing you know, you've got the hurricane that came, right through Clemson and right over Asheville, or just to the west of Asheville. And being on the east side or the north side of a hurricane is the worst place to be, because that's where the most winds are. That's where the most rain is. And that's exactly where the mountains were located, on the east and the northeast side of the hurricane. And so right after all the flooding, which prompted all the mudslides and everything else. So it is eerily similar, but obviously the devastation is far, far greater, because there may be 40, 50 times more people, 100 times more people live there now than used to live there in 1916.
Let's see here. We had Catherine just jump on here. Catherine, hello. Thanks for being here. She says, Bo, when will the governor be back? We actually had Governor McCrory on a couple of times within the last week. He's all over the place these days. He still has this Friday night PBS show that he's doing, that he is very involved in, and it seems to be going very well. and he's, doing some traveling, and I think he was in Cleveland earlier this week. But he's in a mode right now where if something big happens, I got him on speed dial, and he comes on and he'll reach out to me with things that he sees. But as far as a regular thing, I don't think that's in the cards in the near future. But like I said, anytime anything major happens, this storm and the election, countdown, he is still part of the extended family and reaches out and vice versa. So that's what's going on there. I still need to. We were talking on the air the other day about the famous Pat McCrory chair that was in the studio. Remember that for a while? And I was telling the story on the air about how he actually picked that up out of somebody's curb in their garbage. And I was going to have him on the air to follow up on that because somehow it came up, and now I can't even remember why it came up. I do so many shows a year that, and you know this, Brett, it starts to run together. But I was going to call him and get him to retell that story, and then I think the hurricane came along and sort of changed the trajectory of conversation for obvious reasons. But anyway, long story short, I talk to Pat, the governor, all the time, and he still is checking in. Let's see. Tammy says, we listen to the app every day, all day, have been since Hancock was a young chicken. That was a long time ago. But I was working in the building when he was new. I remember, because everybody was like, this guy, Hancock, what about him? And I was this high school kid going, wow, who's going to replace H.A. Thompson? Little did I know. Let's see here. Drew says, we had floods in 1940 here in Caldwell County and Edgemont, and Mortimer were washed away like Chimney Rock. By the way, if you guys were listening the other day and you heard Beth and me talking to Megan, the lady who owns the Chimney Rock restaurant, or who did own it, and in that famous picture of the before and after where you see the whole little village washed out, she had that restaurant that was there. She said on the show on Monday that she thought the town was going to let them go back to the site on Wednesday, which would be today. And I texted her this afternoon, and they did, and she's coming back on tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Beth doesn't even know that because I haven't talked to her. But I just found out before I came over here that she's going to come back on tomorrow at 8:05, and she's finally been up to that site where her restaurant was. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. I feel so bad for her, but again, this is what we need to do, Brett. We need to shine the light on people that are hurting right now and use the 50,000 watts to do whatever we can. And so that's kind of our mentality every morning. We have sort of half the show planned, and then the other half sort of falls into place because we hear from people. And I know that's how it all sort of came together for you yesterday. You just went west, and look what that turned into with people that you met. Some guy walks up to Brett and he says, hey, I'm from WBT Radio. My name's Brett. He said, wait a minute. Breaking Brett Jensen?
Well, that might be my all-time. There's one other all-time favorite encounters. I was at the Harris Teeter in Cotswold, and that's not my Harris Teeter, and Bo knows this story, and Bo still makes fun of me to this day about this story. But I'm at that Cotswold Harris Teeter. I don't even know why. I was looking for something. I don't even remember what I was looking for. And so I went to the Harris Teeter, and I have my back turned, and a guy who in his 20s walks by, and all I hear is, way to go, Brett Jensen. And I was like, what? And I looked at him because it wasn't in the type of voice that would make one feel welcome. And I said, what? And he goes, way to go. I said, way to go with what? And he goes, just everything that you're doing with all the reporting, way to go. And I said, how did you know that was me? And he goes, oh, I follow you on Twitter. And so Bo will randomly just go, way to go, Brett Jensen.
That's right. Oh, my goodness. Let's see. Bobby Gray Sr. says, Brett, you're lucky you never went into the military. In basic training, we had to enter a gas house without our gas mask on, and then they let the gas go, and we had to wait 30 seconds and then put our mask on to clear them. Then they let us out, crying, throwing up, coughing, and more. I'm 73 and I was 17 then, and I will never forget that. I bet not. That's well, thank you for your service first and foremost. But look, my dad was a Marine for a while and went to basic training at Parris Island. So I was
born on an Army base. My dad was during the Vietnam War, and I was born on an Army base.
I was telling the story on the air the other day. My dad doesn't text me often during the show, but he did that day, and he said, when I went to Parris Island, we got there and they put us all in a room, and they said they had to give us everything you have, your clothes, everything, and put them in a bag and address it to your mom. We're going to send that to your mom, and then the rest we take it from here. And he's told me stories during his life about basic training at Parris Island. But Bobby Gray, yeah, I mean, I can only imagine. That's pretty. I mean, Brett experienced just that moment with the gas mask. Let's see. Kim says the morning show rabbit holes are the best. Yes, I agree. The morning show now, and I've said this a few times on the air over the years, the morning show now, and I've been doing it for 12 years, is the morning show that I always wanted to do. And by that, I mean, it has all the pieces together. And I didn't know back in 2012 how long it was going to take or who would become available, i.e. Beth Troutman or Bernie Bowles or Zoke was with me, and that's about it. And Mark Garrison worked for the station, but he wasn't on our shift then. But, I knew in my head the feel of what I wanted to build. And we're there now. And part of what I love is that we have the ability on the appropriate days to go down rabbit holes. And most of those rabbit holes are from listeners. And, you design a show that gives you enough. And this is kudos to our management as well. I had the freedom over a 4-hour show to go where we need to go, but also to go where listeners take us. And those rabbit holes, sometimes we start them, sometimes listeners start them. And sometimes you mention something in passing. You know this, Brett. You mention something you think is going to take 15, 20 seconds, and it just blows up into something else. And those are the days where you know that the right thing to do is to kind of follow the listeners, because the listeners will indicate, where they want to be. And so, yes, Kim, the rabbit holes are some of our favorite moments and have led to some of the best moments in the history of the show since I've been doing it. I mean, we wouldn't know the band Thurston Howell that came and played on our Myrtle Beach show had it not been for a listener one day when we were talking about yacht rock and arguing about whether a band is yacht rock or not. We got turned on to this group that came to the studio the next day, and I love that. I really do. Good morning, BT, says Drew is, as Winterble would say, mandatory listening. Well, thank you. That's what we try to do. And we generally have a good time. And I think that we joke because we have this phrase that we said one morning that we don't know when the microphones are on or off. But that's really the way we operate. Like what you hear on the air is how we sound off the air. And we try to make a conversation.
You took the words out of my mouth, Bo. I was just going to say, like, everyone messages me and they message Beth because Beth and I tend to chirp at each other a little bit. Every once in a while we give digs at each other and everything else. And that's the relationship we have 24/7. And then what you hear, I can tell you this, because as a reporter, all I do is deal in facts. I just deal in facts. And the fact of the matter is that what you hear on with Bo and Beth is exactly how they are off the air. I mean, that's exactly how they talk to each other off the air. There's nothing that I hate, because I didn't take broadcasting classes. I was a writer for 20-something years. So this is all, I'm still learning a little bit here and there. But at the same point, what I despise, absolutely loathe, is people who have fake TV or fake radio voices. It absolutely drives me insane. Bo doesn't have a fake radio voice. I sure as hell don't have a fake radio voice. I refuse to do that. I talk on my show just like I talk to Bo or I'm talking to you guys now. And that's the way Beth is. None of us have fake, hi there, my name is Brett Jensen. Like, none of us do that. We are real. Like, the way we talk on air is the way we talk and interact in real life. And I will tell you, I am so glad that Bo and Beth, because they're two of my favorite people, don't have fake radio voices, because I would be like, me knowing how I am, I'd be like, Bo, why do you talk like that? But he doesn't. He has the way he's talking to you now, and the way he talks on air is the way he talks 24/7, just like the way I do.
Will Timms says, I always forget this story, but how did the Ramones song become your intro, Brett? He said it's quite a nod to Rush Limbaugh in terms of how long the intro is.
Hang on. Somebody just trying to call me. Hang on.
Oh, you froze up. We just lost you.
Hang on.
Somebody called Brett, and so it flushed the system. So he's working on getting back.
There we go. Somebody just called my phone and it jacked it up. My apologies, everyone.
So Will wants to know the Ramones song that you start out with. Where did that come from?
So I love late 70s, early 80s alternative punk rock. I just love it. I don't know why, but I do. Whether it's the Clash, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, whatever. I just love that. The type of music that was at CBGB's, and I've been to the club in New York, the famous club in New York, before it closed down. And so I was looking for an entrance or an intro, and the previous one that I did on all my shows, as Bo knows, and he sometimes plays, was the theme music to the Bourne Identity, or the trilogy, Jason Bourne and all that. And that was my entry music or theme music on my sports radio show at FNZ, and then I moved it over here. And so when I got my night show, I wanted to change it up, and I was driving. I don't even know where I was driving, but I heard the song. I mean, I knew the song, but I heard it. I'm like, that's a pretty long intro. I like it. It's all musical, because you can't have a lot of words all of a sudden jump in. It was long intro, musical, and then it said, "Hey ho, let's go." And I went, "Hey, I kind of like that. I want to it's building up. Hey, let's go." And honestly, that's exactly how it went. I immediately said, "That's the song I want, and that's the song I've been using." And a benefit of that is it's exactly 30 seconds long, so it allows me to walk into the studio 15 seconds beforehand and start the show. And Bo, I mean, how many times over the last couple of years has Bo and Beth been busting my chops about me walking into the studio 5 seconds before I'm supposed to be on air?
The only reason why it doesn't, why it's not that jarring to me all that much is because Pat McCrory did the same thing. I do all the production on the show elements like that for the morning show, and so all those Pat McCrory opens that you would hear, I put those together. They're rather lengthy sometimes, but there have been times with both Brett and with the governor where when we hit the button for the show open, I didn't know if they were going to be there at the other end. Now they've never not been, but as Brett said, it has been tested before. He's cut it close.
So I'm not the person, and we have people at the station that will get there an hour, 90 minutes beforehand and have everything prepped and ready to go. I like to prep home, and then I like to go to the studio, sit down, and just go. I don't want to sit there and think about it, I have all my notes and I have everything that I need, which is usually, 5 words. But my notes consist of 5 words. Like my notes will be Panthers, mountains, CMPD. That's my notes, and then I know what it is, and I just go. Right. So I don't like to sit around. I like to walk in the studio, sit down, and go. And that's just, I don't know. That's the way it's always worked for me.
Well, we actually have that in common. I have a little home studio that I work out of and do all of the sound gathering and editing there. And I do that, so I don't do any preparation as far as that goes at the station. Now, there was a time when I did, but things have evolved over the years. But somebody just asked me, what time do you get up in the morning? So this sort of ties into that. Let me just put this out there. For
8 o'clock.
For 12 years, I got up at about 2:45. Okay. And when Pat McCrory began his show, 5 or 6 years ago, they added a 5th hour to my day. So there was a stretch there where I was responsible for 5 straight hours. And so,
by the way, in the world of radio, that doesn't happen. 5 straight hours is an extreme rarity in the world of radio across the country.
Well, look, I was happy to do it as long as I did, but my new favorite show on WBT is called the Carolina Journal News Hour.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Breaking with Brett Jensen. Okay.
Well, I have one favorite in the morning and one at night. Yours is at night, and then Nick Craig hosts a new show. You should check it out, the Carolina Journal News Hour from 5 to 6, which means I start at 6 now. And I'm finally back to doing the usual 4 hours of a morning show that most people across the country do. And look, Beth came along, and then, and the governor before that. So, I've kind of had to roll with the punches over the years, but Nick now comes on at 5 o'clock. So I actually get to sleep, not an entire hour later, but I get up a little bit later now, and I do the majority of my prep work. I found out in 2014, I know the exact story that it was. In 2014, I used to, in the early days, prep my show at night and then get up in the morning and come to work. And then if you remember the Boston bombing, where you had a story that basically completely turned upside down overnight while I was sleeping, and I got up the next morning, and everything that I'd prepared for it, I thought I'd do with that story, was completely different. And in 2014, so basically a year into my tenure here or so, I guess about a year and a half, I realized that I've got to at least give myself another hour in the morning to get up and go back through stuff and see what else has happened. And then tomorrow morning will be like that because we have a hurricane that's hitting tonight. So all of which to say, I do the majority of my prep at night, and I prepare all the sound, and I cut up all my own sound, just because that I'm an audio geek, and I like things a certain way, and it is what it is. And everybody who works around me knows that. But then I get up and get ready and have another hour before I come to work. But when I step out of the car in the parking lot, I'm ready to go. But I've done a lot of work leading up to that. But that's so right now I'm getting up about 3:30, which compared to what I was doing back in the 2:45 days is like 4 hours. So anyway, we got a few more things to get to here before we wrap up.
I can't even read.
I knew you were late yesterday because I heard Bo counting down. That's right.
Say that again.
He says, I knew you were late yesterday, Brett, because I heard Bo counting down.
Yes, was I late yesterday? Yeah, it was getting. I think I got there yesterday, 60 seconds maybe before we went on air. I think maybe 30 seconds.
You are such a professional.
All right, so real quick. Before, because I'm like, I'll go another. I'm not the one who has to be up early in the morning.
Well, here's the thing. I have 5% battery life.
Okay, all right.
So if we go much longer, all of a sudden I'm going to disappear, and it's just going to be Brett. So
yeah, nobody wants that. All right. So real quick, announcement. So specifically for you guys listening right here, and actually, I mean, I have to give credit where credit is due. This all came from Jamie. It was her idea, and I put the wheels in motion later this afternoon, and I think it's going to happen. She said, why don't you do your show from the people from the mountains where the people you interviewed yesterday were, in the middle of nowhere, in the mountains. And they have Starlink up there. That's their only access to the outside world is Starlink. And so I reached out to them today. They were able to call me using Wi-Fi calling because of Starlink. And I spoke to Andy, the one that listens to us and loves Bo and Beth, and told him that I want to do my show from up there, but also have all of their neighbors around with us. And so I could talk to the neighbors and the people that live there live on radio for an hour, 2 hours, whatever. But so it looks, and I don't know the day yet. I won't know until later in the week, maybe even Saturday or Sunday. But I'm either going to be in the mountains doing my show with all the people that live up there, either Monday or Wednesday. I do have a show Monday. I actually have a show Monday. I do not have a show Tuesday. It's switched this week for some reason. But so either Monday or Wednesday next week, I'm planning on doing my show live from the mountains using Elon Musk's Starlink internet services. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. And I've already started making the arrangements and trying to get all the people that are still in their houses up there in the Bat Cave area and everywhere else to try and join me. And we can do a live show there from Bat Cave, or just outside of Bat Cave, I should say, next week. So I'm really looking forward to that. And honestly, it was all Jamie's idea. Today, while we were actually eating lunch, she said, why don't you do that? And I'm like, you know what? That's really a really good idea. And so that's the plan for next week, Monday or Wednesday, to do my show from Bat Cave.
I'm at 2% battery power now.
Alrighty.
So I'm going to say the thing I was going to tell y'all about is we're going to be at the Speedway on Friday. Beth and I'll be there. And Marcus Smith is going to join us.
Oh, nice.
And I was wondering if you were going to work that out. And I just found out that we are. And he's also going to be on Brett's show, Brett Winterble's too. Real quick here, thank you to Craft Body Scan for sponsoring this tonight and all of the ones we do here for Talktoberfest. Remember, this all leads up to News and Brews at Heist Brewery and Barrel of Arts on October 30th. Next week, Vince Coakley, Pete Callender, and Nick Craig, my favorite, on Monday for the next edition. And thank you to Bernie Bowles, who's engineered every single one of these.
He's the man.
He'll be back with us in the morning and is one of my favorite people in the world. And we could not do the show we do without him. Beth will be back tomorrow, so looking forward to that. Brett, we did it. We did it.
We're here, Big Bo. We did it, big guy from the roof.
I'm just telling Mike Schaefer, I'm not doing these anymore unless I'm up here, man. This is the deal. You guys have a great night. We just had somebody say, and I want to say this as well. Everybody's thinking about the people in Florida tonight with the hurricane coming ashore. We're praying for them, and of course, we'll have the very latest for you in the morning on Milton. Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Bo. Thanks for coming over here.
Y'all take care.
See you guys.
You're still here?